How does one of history's, well, most cunning diplomats, a strategist who initially stood so firmly against a burgeoning faith, how does he not only come to embrace it but become one of its greatest military commanders, only to then face this profound regret on his deathbed?
It's quite the trajectory, isn't it?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on, I think, an extraordinary and profoundly complex journey into the life of Hazrat Amr ibn al-Aas. This isn't just a historical biography, folks. It's really a deep dive into the very heart of early Islamic history. We'll be exploring these, universal themes of conversion, leadership, conflict, and that deeply personal, often agonizing process of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today really is to unpack the multiple facets of Amr ibn al-As. We want to trace his remarkable path, starting from his pre-Islamic political shrewdness. A trait that made him genuinely invaluable to his people, the Quraysh. Then moving through his pivotal, really transformative role in expanding the Islamic empire. And finally, we have to confront those raw, quite emotional confessions he apparently made in his last moments.
Those are powerful.
They really are. Confessions that seem to reveal the human cost of power, maybe, and the enduring weight of the choices we make. We'll delve into the rich material we have to uncover the key events, the insights that shaped his remarkable, yet, let's be honest, often debated, legacy.
And before we get too deep into his story, let's quickly clarify something foundational right off the bat. His name. It's surprisingly often mispronounced, which can lead to quite a bit of confusion, especially for those encountering these figures maybe for the first time in English.
That's a really important point, because in Arabic, names like Umar, U-M-A-R, and A-M-R, they're written quite similarly, sometimes even with the same basic letters, depending on the script. But their pronunciation makes all the difference in identifying the correct person.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Right. So for Hazrat Amr ibn al-As, the one we're talking about today, the correct pronunciation uses an A sound. Think of the A in father or car. It's Amr.
Amorder.
Got it. It's distinctly not an oo sound like in moon. That's how you'd pronounce Umar, the second caliph. So it's not Umar.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and while the written form might look similar, maybe to the untrained eye, especially without all the diacritical marks, understanding this difference in pronunciation is absolutely key. It ensures we're talking about the right historical figure because both Amr and Umar were immensely significant figures in early Islamic history. You don't want to mix them up.
No, definitely not. It's surprising, isn't it, how such a small phonetic detail carries so much weight? Really underscores the precision needed when we're discussing history. Okay, so let's unpack this formidable character then. Amr ibn al-As, even before Islam, he was a truly prominent figure in Mecca.
Oh, absolutely.
He held this incredibly influential position among the Quraysh, his tribe. And he was often referred to as the Muflis, which, what does that translate to, essentially?
It basically meant he was the intellectual powerhouse, the think tank, the strategic brain, if you will, of the entire Qurayshi Ummah.
Oh, wow.
And what's particularly striking here is that his reputation wasn't just based on, his lineage or even just bravery, though he certainly wasn't lacking there. It was fundamentally built on sheer intellect, an extraordinary capacity for strategic thought.
So a real planner.
A master strategist. People genuinely revered him for his capabilities in diplomacy, in dissecting complex problems, navigating these highly intricate, often volatile political situations. To kind of put it in a modern context, you could almost imagine him as the ancient Arabian equivalent of a chief negotiator, maybe a top geopolitical advisor.
Okay, I see.
Or even like a top-tier political consultant for the whole tribe. He just seemed to have this almost innate talent for understanding and, frankly, manipulating the delicate balance of power in the Arabian Peninsula at that time.
That intellectual sharpness, that diplomatic skill, it was put to the test very early on, wasn't it, in one of his most famous pre-Islamic ventures, the Abyssinian embassy?
Ah, yes, the embassy.
A diplomatic mission that, well, from his perspective, went completely spectacularly wrong.
Utterly wrong for him, yes.
So let's set the scene. Early Muslims, they're facing relentless, really brutal persecution in Mecca. So they migrate across the Red Sea to Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia, seeking refuge under the protection of its Christian king, Negus, who's also known as Najashi.
Exactly. And the Meccan polytheists, the Mushrikeen, they saw this emigration as just intolerable. It was an act of defiance, a direct threat to their authority, their whole traditional way of life. They simply couldn't allow these Muslims to establish a safe haven, potentially gain influence abroad.
So they had to act.
They had to act. And in their desperation to bring the refugees back, they deliberately chose Amr ibn al-As. He was their man. their best diplomat,
The strategist?
the strategist. His objective was crystal clear: skillfully persuade Negus to extradite the Muslim refugees back to Mecca. He was supposed to portray them not as persecuted believers, but as, renegades, rebels against tradition, people causing sedition, disrupting the social fabric. He arrives armed with gifts, elaborate arguments, completely convinced he could sway the king.
Right, and here's where the narrative takes such an intriguing turn. The accounts detail this dramatic confrontation in Negus's court, a moment just thick with tension. Amr presents his case, meticulously crafted, using all his rhetorical skills.
All his tricks, yeah.
Trying to convince the king these Muslims are a dangerous cult, a threat to his kingdom, a threat to their own people's beliefs, painting this picture of disloyalty, of rebellion. But then
Jafar ibn Abi Talib steps forward. He's a cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, brother of Hazrat Ali. And he does something unexpected. He doesn't counter Amr's political rhetoric with more politics, no accusations, no counter-arguments in kind.
What does he do?
Instead, he simply but profoundly recites verses from Surah An-Ram, a chapter from the Quran that speaks so beautifully about the birth of Jesus and Mary.
Wow. Straight to the spiritual core.
Exactly. And the impact, as the historical narratives describe it, was immediate, deeply profound, far beyond anything Amr's shrewd diplomacy could have possibly anticipated. Negus, this devout Christian king, was visibly deeply moved.
You can imagine.
It said he wept. He recognized the truth, the spiritual resonance in those verses. Famously, he picked up a straw from the ground and declared that what Jafar had recited about Jesus was exactly true, not even a hair's breadth different from what he knew from his own scriptures.
Incredible.
He was so overwhelmingly convinced by the spiritual truth presented that he just unequivocally refused Amr's request, dismissed Amr and his delegation, sent them packing back to Mecca empty-handed, and granted the Muslims full protection in his kingdom.
So, a complete diplomatic failure for Amateur. A total rejection of his carefully laid plans. But, what does this early setback, this powerful encounter with spiritual revelation, what does it reveal about his initial understanding, his reliance on political maneuvering versus maybe something deeper?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Did it plant seeds, do you think? Even subconsciously?
I think it almost had to. For someone so pragmatic, so steeped in strategy and calculation, witnessing the sheer unadulterated power of something entirely beyond his geopolitical playbook, it must have been deeply disorienting. He saw firsthand the genuine transformative effect of these verses, not on some simple commoner, but on a powerful monarch. Now, he didn't immediately convert, of course. He remained an opponent for several more years.
Right.
But this experience, you have to believe it planted subtle seeds. It forced him to confront the existence of a truth that just didn't play by the rules of diplomacy or power politics as he knew them. It sort of foreshadows his later profound personal change, doesn't it? Showing him there was this spiritual force at play that his strategic mind hadn't grasped yet.
A force that can just dismantle his best plan.
Exactly. Effortlessly. That cognitive dissonance, that gap between his understanding and this new reality, it likely simmered within him for a long time.
That makes a lot of sense. The gradual nature of conviction, especially for someone so embedded in the existing system, and that journey towards his own personal change, it seems to pick up real momentum shortly after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah.
Ah, Hudaybiyah, yes.
Now, this treaty, it might have looked like a tactical setback for the Muslims at the time. Some clauses seemed really disadvantageous, but our accounts emphasize it was actually a pivotal, almost paradoxical moment.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because Hudaybiyah, despite the initial Muslim grievances about the terms, effectively marked the official acknowledgement of Islam as a legitimate, formidable power by the Meccan pagans themselves.
Before that, they just dismissed them.
Pretty much. They saw the Muslims largely as a fringe movement, a rebellious sect they could eventually crush. But by negotiating a treaty, even a tough one, they were, for the first time, treating the Muslims as equals, as a sovereign entity they had to deal with.
That's a huge shift.
It's a massive political shift. And it sent a clear message to astute individuals like Amir and his close friend Khalid bin Walid, who were still outside the fold of Islam at this point. The message was, Islam's trajectory is undeniably upwards.
The writing was on the wall.
Exactly. It wasn't some fringe movement anymore. It was a rising force, a new reality that couldn't be ignored, let alone simply crushed. They saw it not just politically maybe, but perhaps even recognizing something deeper was happening as this fringe movement gained formal recognition.
You know, the relationship between Amr and Khalid and Walid during this period is just captivating. Close friends, both brilliant strategists. Amr, the planner, Khalid, the warrior.
A dynamic duo, even before Islam, really.
Right. And the accounts narrate this fascinating scenario where they embark on what seems like a simultaneous journey, but initially unspoken, to accept Islam.
Yeah, it's quite a scene. Imagine Amr traveling from Mecca, heading towards Medina, the Prophet's city. Meanwhile, Khalid, driven by similar feelings, maybe somewhat coincidentally, is also heading on a path that would lead him to the Prophet.
So they're both moving towards the same goal, independently.
Initially, it seems so. The accounts describe them as being hesitant, almost a little embarrassed maybe, to openly reveal their shared intention, like they'd entered this silent pact without realizing it. But then, during a conversation, maybe a chance encounter on the road, maybe they sought each other out, they both hesitantly disclosed their intention.
How did that play out?
Khalid apparently expressed that he felt this almost divine guidance. He called it Gaibi tide, like an unseen aid, a supernatural support compelling him towards the Prophet. And Amr then admitted, probably with a mix of surprise and relief, I feel the same way.
Wow. That must have been a powerful moment.
A profound moment of connection,
Yeah.
confirming their individual convictions were shared. This covert journey, it really underscores the deeply personal, often quiet nature of conversion, even for such public, influential figures.
It really does. It highlights that pragmatic recognition of maybe political reality alongside what clearly seems like a genuine spiritual awakening. It wasn't just about politics. There was something deeper taking root, a sense of rightness in their hearts resonating with the changing world.
And that deeply personal dimension, it's further underscored by Amr's initial concern right after his conversion. Remember, he'd been a fierce, eloquent opponent for years.
Right, not just passive opposition.
No, active. So he worried deeply about his past enmity, the weight of his previous sins, his actions against the Muslims. He explicitly went to the Prophet and asked for assurance, for guarantee, really, that his past transgressions would be completely wiped clean upon embracing Islam. It shows a real need for absolution, for a clear conscience.
And the Prophet's response, it's just so profound, isn't it? Offers such universal solace.
It really does. The Prophet, as relayed in the account, said something like, do you not know, Anar, that Islam wipes away all previous sins? That a well-performed Hajj wipes away all previous sins? And that migration in the path of Allah, Hijrah, wipes away all previous sins?
Wow, a triple assurance.
Exactly. A powerful message of redemption, of a clean slate, the utterly transformative power of faith. It speaks directly to that fundamental human concern about past mistakes, the desire for a fresh start, a testament to the comprehensive mercy Islam offers.
It truly is a remarkable offer of spiritual rebirth. And what's equally striking is how the Prophet immediately recognized and, well, utilized Amr's strategic mind.
No time wasted there.
Right.
Despite his past opposition, or maybe because of his proven capabilities even as an enemy, Amr was almost immediately given military command after converting. He wasn't sidelined.
Not at all. He was made an emir, a commander of specific expeditions, even relatively small ones, pretty quickly. This rapid ascent into leadership speaks volumes about the value the Prophet saw in his skills and the trust placed in his newfound loyalty and strategic genius.
Yeah, his strategic mind was clearly a precious asset, an asset the Prophet knew could serve the greater cause. And this leadership role, it just expanded exponentially under the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab.
Ah, the era of Umar, a time of massive expansion.
Huge expansion. And Amr played a truly crucial, indispensable role. He became one of Umar's most trusted, most formidable commanders in these key military campaigns that literally reshaped the map. If you look at the geopolitics of the time, Amr was absolutely instrumental in the decisive wars against the mighty Roman Empire. But perhaps his single most monumental achievement during this period, and a real testament to Umar's supreme trust in his genius, was being explicitly entrusted with conquering Egypt.
Which was a huge undertaking.
Monumental.
Yeah.
Egypt was a rich, strategically vital Roman province, heavily fortified, far away. Amr's campaign involved this daring march across the Sinai Desert, a series of really challenging sieges, brilliant strategic maneuvers that often defied conventional military wisdom.
Like what?
Well, for instance, he understood the importance of securing local support, especially from the Coptic Christian population who had their own grievances against Byzantine rule. He skillfully negotiated agreements ensuring their safety, their religious freedom.
So not just military might, but diplomacy too.
Exactly. It wasn't just a military victory. It was this complex logistical and diplomatic triumph. It didn't just expand the empire vastly, it also secured vital grain supplies, crucial trade routes, profoundly impacting the economic and political future of the caliphate. And his influence wasn't just Egypt, he was involved elsewhere too, parts of Iran. It shows the sheer breadth and impact of his military career under Islam.
So that pre-Islamic strategic mind, the diplomatic skills we saw in that failed Abyssinian embassy, they were now fully channeled into serving Islam, but with incredible success this time.
Precisely.
He wasn't just a general leading troops, he was an architect of conquest, leveraging that inherent ability to handle complex situations on a grand scale, even negotiating with conquered peoples for stability. It's remarkable how those talents were redirected.
There's a prime example, really, of how inherent capabilities can be guided and utilized once someone embraces the truth, transforming even past antagonists into powerful champions. His military acumen was undeniable, and it served the expansion of Islam profoundly.
This brings us to a really poignant, maybe somewhat unconventional setting for a prophetic sermon, a moment that carries immense weight for understanding Amir's later reflections. Our accounts describe Prophet Muhammad delivering a farewell sermon, not in the Mosque of the Prophet, Masjid Nabi, the usual place.
Yeah, quite different.
But in a graveyard near Guswat-e-Kususa, a specific burial ground for martyrs that held deep historical emotional significance. And this was just about a month before his passing.
Yeah, that choice of location was deeply symbolic, intentional. It was the burial ground for martyrs from the Battle of Uhud, a battle where, tragically, a small group of Muslim archers disobeyed the Prophet's explicit orders.
What happened?
Driven by a desire for spoils of war, thinking the battle was won, they abandoned their strategic post. And this turned what could have been a decisive victory into a temporary, very painful defeat with many casualties.
Right.
So the Prophet's core message delivered there amidst those graves was this stark, timeless warning about worldly desires, the love of this transient world, its fleeting gains, and how that could tragically lead Muslims to fight each other, maybe even kill each other, and ultimately be destroyed, just like previous nations that succumbed to internal strife and materialism.
A profound cautionary tale about unity, about spiritual priorities.
Exactly. Delivered right there on sacred ground, soaked in sacrifice.
That's such a timeless warning, isn't it? It transcends that specific moment, speaks directly to the dangers of materialism, internal conflict within any community. It's a message with huge relevance for any of us looking at history, highlighting that even within a divinely guided community, human flaws, attachments to the world, can have devastating consequences.
And yet, despite this powerful warning, delivered amidst the graves of those who sacrificed everything, the Prophet also delivered a hopeful vision in that same sermon.
Really? What was that?
He proclaimed that Allah had shown him the keys to the treasures of the earth, specifically mentioning the vast Roman and Persian empires, predicting they would be granted to the Muslims.
Wow. So a warning and a promise.
Precisely. And that prophecy, of course, directly and powerfully relates to Amir's later military achievements, conquering significant parts of those very empires, especially Egypt, part of the Roman domain. It underscores the divine foresight in the Prophet's words. It's almost like he foresaw the very conquests Amir would lead.
And to really drive home that message about prioritizing the afterlife, the value of selfless sacrifice, the accounts bring in the poignant example of Hazrat Hamza ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's uncle, martyred at Uhud.
Hamza, Lion of Allah.
His ultimate sacrifice is powerfully highlighted, isn't it? The tragic fact he didn't live to see the golden period of Islam, the era of conquest, the flourishing state.
He gave everything in the early difficult days. And what's even more profoundly significant, perhaps even provocative, is the strong claim made in some accounts that if Hamza had been alive when the Prophet passed away, he would likely have been the first caliph.
Really? Ahead of Abu Bakr.
The accounts explicitly state that Prophet made him the army chief at the pivotal Battle of Badr, placing him in command even above revered companions like Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali in that specific context. It just underscores his immense stature, his leadership, the Prophet's profound trust in him.
That's a truly significant detail. It emphasizes Hamza's incredible standing and the description of the tragic state of his body after Uhud, how there wasn't even enough cloth to cover him fully. It reinforces the immense personal sacrifice of those early believers.
It really does.
Brings home the stark reality, the raw brutality of those early conflicts.
Absolutely. And it adds another powerful layer to the Prophet's message about worldly desires versus sacrifice. For some, like Hamza, the ultimate reward was in the sacrifice itself, in their unwavering devotion, giving their lives for the truth, even if they didn't witness the worldly fruits of their labor. This emphasis on spiritual gain over worldly achievement becomes such a crucial backdrop for understanding Amr's own later deeply personal reflections.
And those reflections are incredibly intense, deeply revealing. The accounts paint this powerful, almost heartbreaking scene. Amr ibn al-Aas nearing death. He turns his face to the wall, weeping, just inconsolably.
A powerful image.
His son tries to comfort him, right? Tries to alleviate his distress by listing his father's illustrious achievements. Being a close companion of the Prophet, fighting the mighty Roman Empire, participating in countless jihads, reminding him of his greatness.
Trying to bolster his spirits with his legacy. But Amr's response, it's this poignant rebuke, a moment of profound introspection that just cuts through his son's well-intentioned but maybe superficial comfort.
What does he say?
He tells his son, with the weight of a lifetime in his voice, something like, "You have omitted the most important thing." While his son focused on outward achievements, worldly accolades, Amr's mind was consumed by his internal state, his relationship with Allah, the true trajectory of his soul.
And then he confesses.
Then he proceeds to confess the great weight of regret he carried, framing his entire life in 3 distinct periods, each revealing a different dimension of his spiritual journey.
Okay, let's unpack these 3 periods. They offer such a vulnerable window into his soul. The first he describes as the period of enmity.
Yeah.
This was, by his own admission, his deepest regret. He says, quite candidly, that his heart during this time was filled with profound animosity towards the Prophet. A hatred so intense, he admits, he longed for a chance to kill him.
Chilling.
And he believed with utter certainty that if he had died in that state, consumed by such enmity, he would have gone straight to hell. That's incredibly raw, incredibly honest, from such a prominent figure.
It really is. It reveals the extraordinary depth of his transformation and the darkness he felt he'd escaped. The second period he describes is the period of conversion and deep love.
The turning point.
Exactly. He recounts how, by all grace, his heart was open to Islam. And this profound love for the Prophet Muhammad entered his heart, washing away all that previous enmity. He declares with absolute conviction that after embracing Islam, there was no one more beloved to him in the entire world than the Prophet of Allah.
That's a total reversal.
A complete 180, not just political conversion, but profound spiritual shift. A love so complete, it eclipsed everything else.
And he provides that really touching detail, doesn't he, to illustrate the depth of his reverence, his adab.
Ah, yes, that's incredibly powerful. He reveals that out of immense respect for the Prophet, he never dared to look directly into his face. His gaze was always lowered. Pure reverence.
Wow.
So he says, if anyone were to ask him to describe the Prophet's face, he actually couldn't, because he never truly stared at it.
That small, intimate detail speaks volumes. It illustrates the depth of his devotion, his respect, transcending mere political allegiance, speaking to a profound spiritual connection, a humility often overlooked in his powerful public persona.
It really does speak volumes about his sincerity, the purity of his faith during that period. And he believed, quite strongly, that if he had died then, immediately after converting, during this period of profound love and spiritual purity, he would have gone straight to heaven.
Because his sins were wiped.
Exactly. Forgiven by virtue of embracing Islam, performing Hajj, migrating for Allah's sake, Hijrah, he clearly saw this as the absolute peak of spiritual purity and potential salvation in his life.
Okay, so that brings us to the third period, the one where his regret surfaces most heavily. The period of kingship or governmental affairs.
Right, this is where the tone shifts dramatically in his confession.
He says with deep lament, then something happened that should not have happened. He implies getting deeply entangled in the affairs of kingship, worldly governance, political power, which he felt ultimately led him astray from that pure path of the second period. And the accounts specifically link this profound regret to his involvement in the Siffin conflict, which, as we need to discuss, was a deeply divisive, painful moment in Muslim history.
Yeah, Siffin looms large here. And his deathbed instructions for his burial also offer this fascinating, profoundly personal glimpse into his spiritual convictions. His belief in the afterlife.
What were they?
He had very specific wishes. He didn't want any mourners or specifically wailing women accompanying his body, a common practice then. He forbade any fire or lamps at his funeral, also customary, and he specifically requested water be sprinkled on his grave, which was a sunnah, a practice of the Prophet himself.
Simple requests. Humble.
Very humble, yes. Adhering to prophetic tradition in his final moments. But perhaps the most telling, the most poignant instruction, was his request for mourners to remain at his grave for an extended period after burial.
How long?
He specified quite precisely, as long as it takes to slaughter a camel and distribute its meat, which he figured was about 2 hours, a very specific, culturally resonant measure of time.
Why? What was the purpose of that 2 hours?
This is highly significant. The why reveals his strong, vivid belief in the afterlife, in the immediate post-death accountability in the grave. He wanted that specific time, those 2 hours, for him to, in his words, get accustomed to my grave, and crucially, to be able to gather his thoughts, prepare his answers for the angels who would question him.
The accounting in the grave, Munkar and Nakir.
Exactly, that core Islamic belief. This detailed instruction from such a prominent companion right at death's door, it actually pushes back strongly against interpretations that might deny or downplay the concept of grave punishment or accountability. It shows how real it was for him.
It certainly does.
And ultimately, despite his profound fears, his deep regrets, his final plea just reflects his absolute reliance on Allah's boundless mercy, his ultimate hope for salvation despite everything.
And it's this third period, the kingship and governmental affairs, specifically his pivotal role in the Siffin conflict, that seems to have weighed so heavily on him. To really grasp that regret, we need to set the stage for one of the most painful, truly tragic civil strifes in early Muslim history, the Battle of Siffin.
Siffin, yeah. It pitted the forces of Hazrat Ali, the fourth caliph, against Muawiyah, the powerful governor of Syria.
What was the core issue?
It began with deep political disagreements, primarily over the succession to the caliphate after the murder of the third caliph Uthman and how to deal with his killers. These disagreements tragically escalated into full-blown armed conflict, a deeply divisive, bloody moment that tore the young Muslim community apart.
And during the intense fighting, this pivotal, deeply tragic news spread through both armies.
The martyrdom of Ammar ibn Yasir.
Right. Ammar wasn't just any soldier.
Not at all. He was revered, beloved, a very early companion of the Prophet, known for his unwavering piety, his steadfast loyalty to Ali, and importantly, at that time, he was a very old man, well over 90 apparently, still fighting for what he believed in.
90 years old, on the battlefield. Incredible.
And the accounts describe Amr ibn al-As, upon hearing the news of Ammar's death, expressing profound shock and grief, immediately uttering, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." Indeed, we belong to Allah, and to Him we return.
So, a genuine reaction of sorrow.
It seems so. An immediate recognition of Ammar's great stature and the sheer gravity of this event. His death wasn't just another casualty.
Especially when you consider the famous prophecy.
Exactly. His reaction is completely understandable, especially given that well-known prophecy from the Prophet Muhammad himself, a prophecy known to many companions, including Ammar,
Which stated
that Ammar will be killed by a rebellious group, Al-Fiyah al-Baghiyah. And it added, chillingly, that the killer and the looter of Ammar's belongings would be destined for hellfire.
That's incredibly specific and hugely significant. It clearly delineated which side, in the Prophet's words, was essentially on the path of rebellion against the rightful caliph.
Absolutely. So, confronted by this potent prophecy, which directly implicated the side he was fighting for, Muawiyah's side, Ammar immediately rushed to Muawiyah, presumably to address the devastating implications of Ammar's death.
How did Muawiyah handle it?
Well, what followed were fascinating conflicting interpretations, desperate attempts to deflect blame. Muawiyah, ever the shrewd politician, quickly came up with an argument. He asserted that, actually, Ali was responsible for Ammar's death.
How did he figure that?
His logic was, Ali brought Ammar to the battlefield. If Ali hadn't brought him to fight, Muawiyah reasoned, Ammar wouldn't have been killed. Classic political sophistry, really, an attempt to shift culpability.
Wow, that's quite a stretch. How did Ali respond when he heard that?
Ali's counter-argument was brilliant in its simplicity. It exposed the fallacy immediately. He retorted essentially, then Hamza's killer must be the prophet of Allah because he brought Hamza to the Battle of Uhud.
Perfect analogy. Devastatingly effective.
Completely dismantled Muawiyah's flawed premise. It highlighted Ali's intellectual sharpness, his moral clarity even amidst such a painful conflict. Underscoring that responsibility lies with the perpetrator, not the leader who brings someone to a place of potential danger for a just cause.
So where did this leave Amr ibn al-As? He's caught in the middle, fighting on the side implicated by the prophecy.
He was in an incredibly difficult spot, trying to reconcile his active participation with this undeniable prophecy. His argument, apparently, was to try and narrow the scope of the prophecy.
How so?
He argued that the prophet's words applied specifically to the killer and the looter of Ammar, the direct perpetrators, not necessarily to everyone on the rebellious group's side. He asserted that while they were fighting, the specific act of killing and looting wasn't by their direct intention, or maybe that the fire mentioned was only for the direct perpetrator, not for everyone engaged in the battle on that side.
Trying to find a loophole, perhaps.
It certainly reflects a desperate attempt to justify his involvement, or at least distance himself from the gravest implications. It shows the immense weight that prophecy clearly had on his conscience.
And this weight of history, this profound regret over being involved in such a divisive conflict, it wasn't unique to Ammar, was it?
No, definitely not. The accounts mention others, like Sufyan al-Thawri, another companion who fought on Muawiyah's side at Siffin. He apparently spent the rest of his life regretting his involvement, specifically lamenting the tragic killing of Ammar.
It adds another poignant layer, doesn't it? The long-term emotional, spiritual toll these conflicts took, even on those who initially believed they were right.
Absolutely. And this is where contemporary scholarly opinion, like Sheikh Albani's analysis, provides a crucial, quite sobering perspective.
What does he argue?
Sheikh Albani, a highly respected modern hadith scholar, argues that general virtues like being a companion, participating in great conquests like Ammar did, these aren't always sufficient to absolve someone. He suggests they can be effectively broken by specific, grave sins, especially when there's a clear, unequivocal prophecy involved.
Get the one about Ammar's killer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He points directly to that prophecy, Ammar's killer going to hell. Albani suggests that personal piety or a virtuous past doesn't automatically negate the severe consequences of actions that directly contradict a prophetic declaration. Now, he concludes Ammar's ultimate fate is between him and Allah, naturally.
Of course.
But his analysis certainly implies the severe nature of the act, the profound moral challenge it posed. It highlights that even for the most accomplished individuals, certain actions carry immense spiritual weight that general good deeds might not simply erase.
That's a very direct, unvarnished perspective. It doesn't pull any punches. And to further illustrate the depth of this rift, the profound moral stance taken by Ali and his followers, the accounts mention Ali's specific prayer, Qunut Nazila.
Ah, yes, the quinunary during prayers.
During congregational prayers, Ali would invoke Allah's curse upon Muawiyah, upon Amr ibn al-Aas and their key followers. This public, consistent prayer really highlights the severity of the divide, the deeply held conviction on Ali's side about the righteousness of their cause and the grievous error of their opponents.
It was a sign of the times, the depth of the schism. Yet, despite these strong condemnations, these public prayers, the accounts also reveal Ali's characteristic magnanimity, his spiritual foresight, a mercy that seemed to transcend the immediate conflict.
How so?
When asked about his opponents who died fighting against him at Siffin, Ali expressed this profound, almost astonishing hope. He hoped that even those who died as martyrs on his opponent's side might still find a place in paradise.
Even after cursing them in prayer.
It seems paradoxical, but it shows his broad mercy.
Yeah.
His deep understanding perhaps of divine judgment, looking beyond the temporal conflict to the ultimate spiritual destiny. It's a powerful contrast to the animosity of the battlefield, showcasing his immense spiritual fortitude.
So as we try to wrap our heads around all of this, we're left with this truly complicated, multifaceted legacy for Amr ibn al-As. Let's go back to his deathbed confession one last time, because it holds one more incredibly vulnerable insight into how he saw himself, his deepest insecurities.
Right. What was that?
He states that even after all his service, his closeness to the Prophet, he was unsure if the Prophet truly loved him.
Wow. Still doubting.
Yes. Or, he wondered, maybe the Prophet just gave him positions of command, of influence, simply to keep him content, a kind of flattery, maybe. Diplomatic appeasement for a powerful tribal leader who could be a strong ally or a formidable foe.
That's a truly crucial, heartbreaking admission. Despite his immense contributions, the leadership roles bestowed by the Prophet himself, he harbored this profound, lingering doubt about the Prophet's genuine affection for him.
And he names others he thought the Prophet did truly love.
He did. He explicitly stated his conviction that the Prophet truly, deeply loved two specific companions. Ammar ibn Yasir, whose death at Siffin caused Amr himself such grief and turmoil, and Mu'adh ibn Jabal, another highly revered scholar.
So he puts himself outside that inner circle of love in his own mind.
It speaks to a deep insecurity, doesn't it? Perhaps a feeling that his past enmity could never be fully erased from the Prophet's eyes in his own heart, or that his later involvement in political disputes, especially Siffin, had somehow overshadowed his moments of pure faith, his true devotion during that second period. It shows a man wrestling with his own worthiness right up to the end.
And then his final words, reflecting profound repentance, absolute reliance on divine mercy, they truly summarize his life's internal struggle, his ultimate submission. He pleaded, didn't he, a desperate cry?
Yes. Well, we abandoned what you commanded us, and we did what you forbade us. There is no escape except your mercy. It's powerful, raw, a testament to his entire journey, encapsulating his awareness of his shortcomings and his ultimate desperate hope in divine compassion.
So if we connect all these dots, Amr ibn al-As's life, it really teaches us about the immense complexities of faith, the allure and the pitfalls of power, the inescapable reality of human fallibility, and that enduring hope for redemption.
Absolutely. He was an individual of immense strategic brilliance. His pre-Islamic cunning transformed into a powerful force for Islam's expansion. He made huge, undeniable contributions to the empire. Yet, in his final moments, he grappled with profound regrets over his later involvement in political conflicts that so tragically divided the community.
His story is just a powerful reminder that even the most accomplished, the most influential individuals face profound moral and spiritual dilemmas. It's not a simple linear path of perfection.
No, it's a continuous journey. Learning, making choices, confronting the consequences. Can someone be a great leader, achieve monumental successes, and yet still grapple with such deep personal regrets? His story shouts yes. He was a man of his time, navigating unprecedented changes, and his life is almost a microcosm of the challenges facing that entire early Muslim community.
And that leads us to a provocative thought, perhaps for you, the listener, to take away. Amr ibn al-As's life serves as a potent mirror, doesn't it? It compels us to ask, in our own lives, when we're presented with the allure of worldly power or position or personal gain, do we risk sacrificing the very essence of our values, the purity of our intentions, only to find ourselves, maybe at the very end, desperately seeking mercy for choices we now deeply regret?
A sobering question indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the extraordinary and, yes, very complex life of Hazrat Amr ibn al-As.
We hope this exploration encourages you to ponder the multifaceted nature of historical figures, that tension that often arises between worldly power and spiritual piety, and that ever-present human struggle for redemption.
His story isn't just history, it's a timely human drama, reminding us that even the most influential lives are journeys of continuous learning, choice, and profound, often painful reflection.